Jesse Dombrowski.
Thank you
How
very
are
much,
you?
David.
Excellent. Another founder who's living in clearly way above your station. I mean, founders are supposed to be living in skanky little hovels in the ground because you're spending all your money on your tech, but
You
clearly
definitely
things are
didn't
going
do the
well.
last place that I was living
Okay,
in.
good. Hey, look, Jesse, I'm going to hand over to you to tell us all about augmented reality, and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, David. Kia ora. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. Let me just run through the brief overview of me, tell you a little bit of what David kind of said here, how I got to this place, and what I am working on. And make sure that I'm sharing this screen. There we go. I am from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan in Canada. I was born and raised there. I studied architectural technology and building science. In this time, I discovered Revit, a 3D drafting program for architecture. And I quickly became a specialist in this technology. I helped my coworkers learn along with me as I learned this just from reading stuff on the internet. I did a year of arts and science because I wanted to actually become a dentist at one point. And then shortly after that, I moved to New Zealand in 2015. I got back into architecture because I needed money and this is what I was trained in. And so I got right to work. My first project was the Otahu Bus and Train Interchange, then worked on Britomart City Rail Link, the International, a 17-story apartment building downtown. And it was around that time that I discovered the Microsoft HoloLens keynote. And as soon as I saw this technology, I knew that this was going to be amazing. I figured that I could learn how to do this in the same way that I learned how to use Revit, and I gave it a shot. So I bought a laptop and I used the emulator and I started to create really, really basic programs, applications, and I gained a bit of confidence. I then got a new job at Auckland Residential, developing more just specifically apartment buildings, and I got my hands on a HoloLens. That was shortly after that, that was when I founded Ascend Reality. I wanted to be able to explore all the different options of whatever I could imagine, and creating a startup seemed like the right way to do that. So I was still working at the time and I've bootstrapped this company since. And so during that time of the early days, one of the things that I built was I used an Xbox controller to create a RC airplane that I could fly around my apartment. I joined a hackathon with a guy named Ian Tierra, and we figured out how to get IoT devices to live show data and information inside the HoloLens. So after progressing to this to a certain degree, I decided that it would be best for me to focus on developing and creating better technology. So I actually took a sabbatical and I went to Mexico for 3 months. In this time in Mexico, I figured out how to use Blender, make 3D models for game engines, materials, lighting, and all that kind of stuff. And I also did the work to apply for a Callahan.
Yeah, unmute me then. Yeah. Hi, Jesse. I just wanted to let you know, if you're moving slides, we're only seeing like the same slide. So I think
this is just an overview. I'll get into slides soon.
Well, I'm so excited to see like 3D virtual reality doodah. So okay,
no, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. I'm just about to finish this part. I got a Callahan R&D project grant. And that's when I've proven to myself that I and to other people that I'm capable of doing quite a bit. In December, I took a week's worth of holiday to do a proof of concept with the application that I'm going to be showing you very soon. And then when COVID hit, I had the opportunity to focus, and from there I developed a quick way to get the content into this. So let's jump into what augmented, virtual, and mixed reality is to help you understand where I'm getting at with all of this. So starting off with virtual reality, this technology has been around for quite some time. This is actually the back cover of Mondo 2000 magazine from 1993. 27 years later, it hasn't really changed very much. VR is a very interesting device. It's an inclusive experience, and it's very transportive. So it takes you and puts you into a whole new world and ignores everything else around you. That's really good for certain things, but is not great for other things, like being in a public setting. When you're inside a public environment, people are fairly self-conscious. They're afraid of running into things or somebody else. And the absolute worst is if somebody were to physically touch you while you're inside this. It's very uncomfortable. But VR has awesome applications for things like training, for video games. Doom and Half-Life VR are excellent examples of this. Half-Life VR actually got a 10 out of 10 rating and a 97% approval rating, which in gaming industry is virtually unheard of. Now, when I'm talking about augmented reality, right now we're going to be using augmented reality is using a device with a screen to see digital information in relative to your real world. So this is done with either two ways. Typically, it started with using a marker to activate something. So either using a QR code or an image that instantiates this 3D experience that you can then interact with. In the video that I'm showing you here, I'm actually showing you a markerless experience. So the iPad is recognizing a surface, and I've placed the 3D content there, and then I'm exploring it from that point. The benefit of this is the surfaces allow you to use basically anything from a table to a floor or a bench, or even vertical surfaces like a wall to host your content and then interact with it from there. Some of the drawbacks with using augmented reality is it's using a device. So that's using this digital pass-through to see the information that you're working with, but it's now separated from you and that experience. And so something that you typically have to do is make the content a lot smaller. You got to scale it down so that it's accessible and it's not easily lost, because it can be lost somewhere else. People can be a bit distracted with that. There also are some things to keep in mind when you are developing something in augmented reality, and that is where your phone or your device is going to be during this experience. So if your device is horizontal, people around you get uncomfortable, which makes you uncomfortable because they think you're filming them. If your device is up here and going around, people think you're crazy or lost. And if you're using trying to view a 360 photo or video, and you're doing this to kind of go around and see different things, you're basically just looking like a really weird person. But if you're focusing most of your device usage onto down, either on a tabletop, the floor, or something, coffee table or something like that, people actually see that and they get fairly interested. They go, "Oh, what are you looking at? I want to see what's going on here too." So going from augmented reality to mixed reality is when we take this video pass-through device and we put this onto a head-mounted device. So this is the Microsoft HoloLens. It's the first generation. They have the second generation out right now, and had a dream last night that the third generation was already being talked about, but I don't think that's happening yet. So right now, this device is using waveguide technologies. So that's the lenses that you see inside that rounded visor. It's refracting the light and creating a digital image that's relevant to you in a very interesting way. This technology is rapidly advancing and seems to be following Moore's law, so we can have a lot of really cool stuff to be looking forward to. Now, the way that this device works is by using spatial understanding. What's happening right now is the HoloLens is recognizing the surfaces and building a spatial mesh by taking advantage of the technology used in the Kinect. Once it understands the spatial mesh, and this is consistent, and it is then able to add 3D information to that real world environment, and it's incredibly stable. I can turn this device off, take it across the world, and come back, load it back up again, and since I'm in the same environment, it knows exactly where to put all the 3D content that I've placed out and about. It's also doing another thing where it's recognizing my hand, and since this is just the first generation of the HoloLens, it only really has this tap and pinch gesture and then a bloom gesture to open up the menu. The HoloLens 2 has fully articulated hand tracking to the point where you can actually play a chord on a keyboard. So the tracking and the quality of that is really incredible. It also has voice recognition, be able to integrate with things in that way as well. So the power of mixed reality, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about industries that are already taking advantage of this. And the amount of money that is in this industry already is immense. There's billions of dollars already being thrown around, which have already proved that the value of this technology is far too large to ignore, which to me makes it virtually inevitable. Some of the industries that are taking great advantage of this are large-scale construction. They're using BIM, which is building information management or modeling, depending on the stage. And when they're properly applying it, they're saving an incredible amount of money. It is proving to be very useful. BIM HoloView is a local company that's actually doing this kind of work as well. There's also manufacturing benefits as well. So things like on-the-job training, complex assembly, you no longer need to have 2D information, 2D diagrams in a paper book that has to be moved and analyzed. Instead, you can work with a 3D model that is relevant to the thing that you're working on. There's also the ability to have collaborative design. In the automotive industry, there are proof of concepts and companies using this already, as well as in architecture. Being able to communicate in 3D in real time takes a lot of the gestures and the the theoretical out of, and brings a real tangible experience into this communication. There's also the benefit of remote assistance. So you've got the ability to bring somebody in and they can see what you can see, which then they are able to interact with the device and draw 3D information into your real world environment so that you know exactly what you're working with, as opposed to saying, no, it's the 1/3 to the right, and all, very difficult communication. Other things are executive oversight and data visualization. And a good example of this is air traffic control and mining. I've seen concepts for these, and they're coming along really powerfully. I've also seen an example of a water treatment plant using localized information for their machinery and stuff like that. So I realized that I was working with a 3D model in architecture that very few people got to experience. And so I chose to use mixed reality to create a very unique and amazing experience for people to be able to understand what a floor plan means. So I advertised, or I created this experience to show off the greenhouse apartments here in New Zealand. And here I used both augmented and mixed reality. So I'm using a marker-based image right now to show off a 3D model relative to that plan that you're seeing. And then I've also got the HoloLens, which is a full-scale walkthrough, allowing you for the opportunity to walk all the way from a bedroom and out into the balcony and see the view that you would be seeing 6 floors up. Now, augmented reality, in my mind, the way that I see it, is setting the precedent, or giving you the opportunity to design something, a program, as a stepping stone for when mixed reality is going to be available. And Apple's been preparing for consumer level device for quite some time now with their AR kit, and Google has been doing something very similar with AR Core. But Apple's been particularly really forward focused in creating this ecosystem to enable developers to create 3D applications, because really the mobile app market was one thing and had to redesign all these different programs to work for that mobile device. But now we're talking about a 3D environment and creating 3D applications. So an example of Apple going forward and preparing without specifically saying that a device is coming is putting LiDAR into an iPad. LiDAR in an iPad doesn't really make very much sense on its own, other than to give developers the opportunity to create software that runs and works with this technology. Another thing that Apple is rumored to be doing is to offload the information, the processing power, things like rendering and that kind of stuff, onto the iPhone to keep the headset lightweight and sleek. In my mind, I really hope this happens. But another level of technology that I think is almost guaranteed to play a major role in this is 5G. 5G would theoretically enable you to take all of the rendering power off of the device, which actually alleviates a lot of the heat generation and the intense processing power that's required for experiences like this. The Microsoft HoloLens is already doing this with their Azure Remote Rendering. That's available already, and you can stream up to 1 million polygons with high-def materials on there and be streaming it very smoothly. So to think that 5G is capable of doing this is fairly straightforward, fairly logical. So with all of what I've talked about in mind, I applied that learning and that information to creating a real estate application for selling apartments that are not yet built. Up until now, tools that real estate agents have had to sell apartments, especially something that doesn't exist yet, were 2D floor plans, as well as a couple renders, and then a physical external scale model underneath the plexiglass case inside a showroom. This meant that buyers typically had to make their purchasing decisions with a certain amount of faith involved. And so I've developed something that is easy to use, easy to explore, basically just by moving the iPad around or rotating the model that's on the surface. People can explore and see how exactly everything can fit within a small apartment. So where this is going is very soon this will be accessible within a mixed reality experience. So in this video, I'm going inside the apartment. And when this is a mixed reality device, it's really amazing when it is accurate to size and scale. Because when you walk 6 meters across a room, you're walking 6 meters across the digital room at the same time. You can really get a sense of scale. The bench is at the right height, the couch is the right length, and the windows and the ceiling is at the right height. And so in a mixed reality experience, you're not translating it through AR, you've got it already being seen through these goggles, and you're just looking around and walking around and interacting with a full-scale experience. It's really, really quite a magical experience. So that's me. I think I'm running close to my time. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited that you were able to attend my talk. Please add me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram, and send me an email if you are interested in seeing a preview download of the application that I featured here today. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much. All the best.
That's great. Thank you, Jesse. I thought your company name was Mr. Real Estate when I saw that up there. I thought, oh, okay, that's quite cool. But the MR is mixed reality in that phrase.
Yes.
Nice. And I'm frankly still getting over the fact that you're from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I think you're the first person I've ever talked to that's from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. That's pretty cool.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's like being from like Kiwi Leg, New Zealand. Like it's just quintessential. It's amazing. But thank you for that. Look, you've clearly got an amazing mind around the technology. Tell us about the startup business that you're running. How's momentum going at the moment? How are customer sign-ups? Are you happy with the way you're tracking?
It's been a very interesting experience, and I've kind of taken a little bit of time after I realized how I could best approach the market at the moment, and that's at the moment using augmented reality, so using a physical device to be able to approach that. And so I've since I've been bootstrapping this and running this in my essentially spare time while running a full-time or doing a full-time job.
Yeah.
I've haven't had as much time to be able to learn how to do the software and create a company and everything for the earlier days in this. And so now I've been building this technology so that I can approach companies with confidence and showing them that I can actually do something. And more than just showing them that I can do something, showing them that something exists. Because in the same way that my business pitches, people have a hard time understanding what you're talking about unless they can actually see it. The exact same thing goes when trying to sell somebody on an augmented reality experience.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me to say these things without actually showing you what it is. And creating the application that I have already has taught me an immense amount about how to use the device, how people will use the device, and how it will be experienced. And it's completely worth me sitting down and putting in the time to be able to do that.
There's a lot of people on the call, I'm sure, who have had salespeople come to them and try and sell them stuff that they can't understand before. So you're just the latest in a lot of people who sell vapor, but your vapor has a real business use, and it's interesting. When I first saw virtual reality and mixed reality, I was going, oh, it looks very gamey and sort of for kids or whatever. But the business applications are what's really interesting. Can you think about where this might head in terms of that business application of your tech?
Of my tech, I mean, mixed reality in real estate is really just the tip of the iceberg. Once this technology is becoming a bit more commonplace, especially once there are head-mounted devices, and especially something as lightweight as what we've been assuming Apple is capable of coming out with, the opportunities explode. Everything from entertainment to location-based information. When I first started thinking of mixed reality, my first thought was, well, I can have location-based information based on even just where I am in my home or in the office. When I sit down at my desk, I can have a plethora of screens, unlimited opportunity here, unlimited real estate, not locked down to just what I've got on my screen here, but I've got space and I can manipulate 3D models. And ultimately, mixed reality, the benefit of it is education. I'm educating people what this floor plan is going to mean. And I'm educating people what this thing that's inside my brain or inside my 2D computer screen, I'm educating them as what that is in 3D. And that's where it takes things. Everything that we do is some form of education. Education isn't just school or a university. It happens in our everyday lives. And that's where I think the power is if you can find a way to educate somebody on something that they don't see the same way that you see it, then here's a new opportunity, business case alike. There's so much. This is a virtually empty app market.
Great. You seem you're very enthusiastic. I like that about you. You've got this kind of deep enthusiasm. How do you keep up to date with all the technology shifts? Where do you go to for information?
I follow a lot of different tech blogs and a lot of different subreddits just to see what people are posting. Being involved in chats through either different Discord or Slack channels to be able to have these conversations with like-minded people, and just trying a lot of reading, noticing anything that comes up on NBR and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of reading involved.
That's great. Well, it looks like it's doing the right thing for you, and the company's obviously set up for success. So congratulations, it's looking great. Thanks for sharing the story with us.
Thank you.
Excellent. Have a great afternoon. That was Jesse Dombowski from Mr.